I just want to welcome everybody again. Thank you for spending time with us today as we go through process intelligence. We'll start with a brief introduction, kind of an opening, setting the stage for process intelligence, and then Nick will dive into a demo of the process mining tool that exists within process intelligence. Briefly touch on capture and certify as additional data sources for process intelligence, and then we'll take a quick tour of the application's dashboard and analysis capabilities. Nick will be doing all the heavy demo lifting while I get the easy parts like introductions. So who is Worksoft? We're the industry's only connective automation platform for complex package applications. More on this in a bit, but basically we're talking end-to-end from discovery to testing to RPA. We focus on intelligent automation, process optimization, cost improvement, and business analytics. We are industry agnostic, and we're trusted by the world's leading enterprises across industries. We have deep expertise in packaged application. SAP actually uses us to test their own applications. We have a headquarters in Dallas with additional offices in London and Munich. So at Worksoft, we take the three pillars of an end-to-end business process, discovery, automated testing, and robotic process automation, and we connect them all into one platform, bringing the full life cycle of business process together. Why would we do this? Because we see companies struggle today with multiple tools. Integrating multiple tools is difficult. Training on multiple tools, each with a different interface approach and functional philosophy, is a big challenge. When a new process is needed or an existing process needs to be changed, it's a chore to ensure that all these different tools get the right steps, get the right changes, and then you need to update, if you need to update one of these systems or upgrade them, and it's ensuring that the new version plays well with all the other tools. All of this leads to more developmental challenges, right? So multiple tools, multiple platforms, they're increasing development time because ensuring these disparate systems work together takes more time, costs more, and with so many different tools, it ends up feeling less stable as a result. This all leads to what nobody wants, which is to feel less confidence in the solutions being implemented. That feeling of, I've got all these tools in place to get us to a better, more productive, more profitable place, but we just seem to be working an endless cycle on getting them to work together. This makes the horizon fuzzy because it's difficult to track overall progress and ROI across multiple systems. Our solution to these problems looks like this: one codeless integrated platform across the process lifecycle. You're probably already familiar with the Certify suite for test automation. It's end-to-end testing across core business processes like HR, SCM, CRM. Connective RPA is our RPA solution, allowing for secure, compliant production process automation. And Analyze, which along with Capture, is our process discovery product pillar, incorporating some task mining, optimization analysis, as well as process documentation generation. The process discovery pillar is what we're discussing today. An evolution of that pillar for us, as we're dramatically increasing the scope and coverage of our abilities in process discovery by adding process intelligence to our connective automation platform. Process intelligence is built to provide a 360-degree view of business processes, incorporating all the process data we currently collect through Capture, Certify, Connective RPA, plus some BPMN sources, as well as best practices. Process intelligence also includes a new process mining solution that will feed process mining data into this holistic process view. Nick will be showing more of the process mining here in a bit. All of those different types of process data are getting aligned with some clever AI and machine learning algorithms into one unified process database. This will allow the tracking of realized optimization savings. What have we automated and how much is it saving us, as well as identifying and prioritizing additional optimization opportunities. This is in addition to the benefits added by the process mining solution. Process mining is a bit like process archaeology, where we're investigating process events that have already happened to find hidden pain points, root cause explanations behind maybe some not so hidden pain points, find some rework instances, as well as other insights. This information can be combined within the task mining done from Capture, and we can get a more complete picture of as-is processes so that we can look for optimization opportunities as well as transformation and best practice comparisons to get some real ROI assessment, as well as identify the best candidates for automation and RPA. All of this while still providing process documentation for what's been captured for current and future generations. All of this more solidly feeds into the continuous improvement pipeline, tying back to the connective automation solution we discussed, right? Better processes leads to better automation, which leads to better RPA. All of this analysis and analytics is then served back to our users in an easy to understand executive dashboard that looks like this. We'll actually be bringing up this dashboard later and drilling down into some of these metrics to get to show off some process visualization analysis. But for now, I will turn it over to Nick, who will start the process mining demonstration.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Appreciate the introduction. So just before we go into the demo, just one more slide from my side, just to give you a little bit of further context as to what we're going to be showing you today. As Chris mentioned, we have three key pillars or features that make up the Worksoft platform. And one of these is process discovery or process intelligence. And the key premise that this is built on is that to be able to effectively automate either testing or RPA, you first need to understand your organization and the processes that underpin and keep your organization running. And that makes sense, right? You need to ensure that you're putting time into automating the right things. And of course, just as importantly, not automating the wrong things. So as part of that journey, we have a number of capabilities that provide real business value in terms of giving you intelligent insight into your processes and showing you exactly how your processes are executing. Because from our point of view, insight is key to this entire journey. So then from that acquired knowledge, you then have all that you need to start defining what the next steps in your automation journey should be. So as part of our discovery pillar, we have the ability to extract process data from multiple sources. We can connect to your backend applications as well as to front-end sources by going through user interfaces, and we can extract all of that information that gives you that key insight into your processes that you would require. So firstly, we can leverage our process mining capabilities by connecting to your backend databases, backend systems, and so on, where we extract in real historical transaction data. So your as-is information that sits within all of these repositories, and we can start visually understanding and walking through all of it. So here we'd be looking at how a process is executing and what all the different variants are. We'd be looking at identifying things like bottlenecks, problems within your processes, and then just areas that would be benefiting from, or would be seek to benefit from things like optimization, standardization, and then just general streamlining. And then secondly, we can also extract valuable information from how your users are interacting with your application user interfaces. So we'd be doing a live walkthrough through the UIs, understanding the steps that your users are taking to fulfill their tasks, as well as the data that they're using. We'd be able to piece together the activity flows, and we'd also be able to stitch all of those into greater end-to-end process understanding as well. And we do that by using a tool called Business Capture. Additionally, we can also extract valuable process insight from the results of automation that you currently have running in your environment. And these results come from Worksoft certified processes that you can run. Now, if you're not familiar with Worksoft Certify, Certify is the core of our automation technology. It's where you build out a library of automation that you would use for either test automation or for RPA. You would run those processes, and then you would get the results returned back to you. And we can mine some valuable process information from those results. So we'll look at each of these in the order mentioned, and then we'll show you how we can consolidate all of that information further into our centralized process intelligence dashboard. All right, so let's just start getting into some of the demo. So I've already logged into our process mining application, and I've assumed the role of somebody like a business analyst. It could be a domain expert or even a department manager. In effect, it's going to be somebody who needs to get visibility into their processes in order to understand what the current landscape looks like, as well as understand what future potential might be uncovered in terms of process improvements. So what we're now looking at is the discovered model, which is one of the core components within the solution. This is where we've taken all of the transactions from our source systems, and we're now visually displaying them back in a format that's really easy to consume and walk through. So what we're doing here is uncovering the real process from the raw system data. We take in your as-is scenarios, so there's no need to speculate or make assumptions about how things are working. And there's no need for lengthy user interviews, no need to try and get a hold of users to understand what it is that they do, no need to do things like whiteboarding, where you're trying to manually then map out what processes of the different variants look like. At the click of one or two buttons, you can seamlessly start walking through your process. So I've selected a procure-to-pay dataset. It's been extracted from an SAP system. And starting with what we can see here, we've got a process that's been executed a number of times. It has a sequence of 3 activities. And we've got some information with regards to things like counts and average durations between these activities. Now, this first variant is always a representation of your most commonly executed path. In this example, we've got 709 cases, which makes up a little over 16% of all of the executed cases. So this is the path that's being executed most frequently. What we can also see is that we've got 37 different process variant groups. Now, by definition, a variant is just a process that's been executed in a different way from the other processes, with at least one activity being different. And then using our slider, it's really, really easy to then start walking through all of our different variants. And then we can start seeing all of the other paths that our users have taken to execute all of these different variants. We can see all of the additional activities that start coming in. And then we can also start seeing very quickly where we are starting to get bottlenecks coming into our processes and where things are slowing down. And you can see this by the visual depiction in this red arrow that you're seeing over here. So being able to get visual information back really easy in terms of just honing your attention into areas that might need further investigation. So when we consider the types of roles again that would be involved in your process mining projects, we'd be talking to somebody like your domain experts, business analysts, those type of roles, departmental managers who'd be looking for patterns and insights into your processes and variants. And with this visual capability, it's very easy to start drawing out this valuable information that you can start acting on. So let's start picking out a couple of examples that we can then start walking through. So looking at the second variant, what we can see here is that we've got an activity, vendor invoice payment, which is being skipped approximately 417 times and moving to discount end. So when we consider purchase to pay, it's a process that defines the procedures that an organization will follow to purchase goods or services. And there'll be a list of official vendors that the organization can purchase from. So when purchasing from these vendors, you most likely would have an account with them. And as part of that, you would have a credit line. And with that, potentially, you might be given some payment terms where you might be offered discount for paying early. So what we're seeing in these 417 cases, it seems like we haven't paid our invoices on time. And the discount that would have been available to us has expired. So from a procure point, a P2P point of view, procure to pay, this is something that definitely would need to be analyzed further, as it's important to the efficiency of a procure to pay process. When we're not taking our discounts available to us, in effect, what that means is that we're paying more for goods and services. There's a greater outflow of cash that affects our liquidity position, and thereby possibly introducing risk to our organization. So something that we would want to look into in more detail. Let's take a look at a few more examples. And then if we were to just spend a couple of seconds looking at this, very quickly, we'd start identifying some other causes for concern. We've got 1,340 cases over here where we have no purchase orders that have been created. So in effect, what this means is that our purchasing department only becomes aware of these orders once we've received invoices from our vendors. So this appears to indicate that we have a problem with maverick buying, which is also known as rogue buying. Maverick buying, by definition, is when employees in an organization bypass established procedures and make purchases without the approval of the procurement department. So in effect, we may be purchasing goods and services from unauthorized vendors, and that might result in the possibility of us buying goods and services from these unauthorized vendors, resulting in things like where we're spending more than we should, higher prices. Maybe we're spending budget that we actually don't have. We could potentially be buying goods of inferior quality. And as you can imagine, taking these things together, they can expose the organization to significant risk. Then we've got 637 cases over here where we can see that there are no activities here. So we're not creating purchase orders. We're not seeing anything in terms of invoices being created, and we're going directly to discount end. So definitely very quickly, we are picking up some problems within this particular organization's procure-to-pay process. Let's just think about what we've seen here. In a couple of minutes, we've been able to identify that we're losing out on discounts. So that's affecting our liquidity, number one. Number two, we have a problem with rogue buying, and that's exposing our organization to risk. And we have 37 different variants, which means that in order to get more efficient, we would need to decrease these and then standardize further. And then the more we can standardize, we can then consider what we can automate. And then vice versa, the more we automate, the more we can standardize. So this organization has a lot of work to do in terms of being able to get to that optimization potential. So the idea is very quickly and easily, we get this rich set of visual analytics that get displayed back to us, which we can then start analyzing from different angles in order to get the kind of insights that we need. And then working with the discovered model, we have the ability to create a target model. Now, the target model is the future state of your process. It's that ideal state of your process that you want your activities to be conforming to. It consists of the preferred path or the preferred sequence of activities that your processes should go through. And in this example, we see this organization has identified 7 activities that they would consider to be activities that they would consider as part of their standard operations. 2 of these activities are optional, which you can see reflected in this block over here. But these other 5 activities are those mandatory activities that they consider to be compulsory for their particular process. So what we end up doing over here is we're now going to be stacking up all of that discovered data against the target model, and we're going to see what the results are. So what we're starting to see here, depicted by these red dotted lines, are deviations from the ideal scenario or the model. And the thicker the line, the higher the number of cases in the deviations. We also then have some icons which have appeared over here, just giving you some further insights. So for example, these blue icons are activities that are being skipped regularly. The brown icons are activities that have been switched with other activities. So once again, just giving you that multi-dimensional approach to your data, allowing you to filter out some of the other noise and focus in on information that could be pertinent to your operations. So this combination of the discovered model and the target model, the idea is to help guide you in your efforts as to how and where you should be investing your time and energy by providing what I call these layers of information that become easy to then start navigating through. Then also in the same vein, in offering a multi-dimensional approach to your data, you can also focus in on the variance through a different type of view. And here again, we're just comparing the different variants to the target model, but we're just focusing on the flow between the activities. And various activity statuses are highlighted again. Activities in blue are being skipped. Anything in gray are activities that are conforming to our target model. And in this example, we can see that variant 4 is the one that seems to conform most closely. Everything else seems to have some type of deviation. And we've got the ability to then fetch the data that sits behind all of this very quickly by drilling down into the variance, getting the case data that sits there in terms of the attributes. So for example, we can do things like reporting and dashboarding on the region, on whether something had a discount available, invoice amounts, and so on. So whatever we're collecting from the source data, we're able to visualize it, we're able to filter on it, and give you that multi-dimensional approach to your data. And then additionally, to help you determine the root causes on why certain things have been happening, we have AI and machine learning capability dispersed right throughout the solution. And what we're doing then is looking for patterns in your data and then guiding you into areas that might need attention and that might need your focus. So you have the ability to then go and potentially do things like selecting activities that you want to drill into. And in this example, I've selected one activity that I want more information on. So this purchase order item that's been skipped regularly, skipped almost 2,400 times where this has occurred. And what you'll see when you start drilling down into these is that without any user intervention, the system has identified different areas that we can then start clicking into to start getting intelligence on. So for example, these are all the attributes that we can then start bringing back in order to understand what's happening. So if we were interested in understanding why we might have purchase or road purchasing across certain vendors, we'd just be able to select that attribute, and then we'd be able to look at the affected cases. And what we're noticing here is that the example of road buying seems to be concentrated across these two vendors over here. We can then start asking questions as to why is this happening? Why are we seeing such a high example of maverick buying compared to some of these other vendors that are servicing our organization? And then in order to reduce this, what do we need to do in terms of potentially adding additional controls? Do we need to revisit our contract with these vendors to ensure that potentially maybe penalties would be in place if they are not offering services according to the prescribed procedures? And then we can look at finding ways of fixing things, optimizing this particular area, and so on. And then we also have powerful dashboarding capabilities in the form of advanced content packs. And we've got a number of these for different processes. The one we're looking at again is purchase to pay. And the purchase to pay dashboard starts with this general tab, which just gives you some high-level KPIs into your process. So things like the number of order positions, cases with rework being 35% approximately, which is quite high. We'd want to be able to reduce this to reduce the cost and the impact to our organization. The automation degree currently being quite low, less than 25%. We want to see how we can increase this so we can drive our efficiencies, decrease all of that manual work, shift our labor into some more value producing activities, and so on. And then another indication of high road purchasing is the fact that we've got this ratio of order positions without purchase requests being almost 80%. So a huge risk to our organization. We'd be able to then click down into all of these just to get additional intelligence. And I'm just going to click down into Rework for now as the one example that we can look at. And when we consider rework, rework always implies human intervention with some type of manual activity. And rework always has some type of cost associated to it then. And then we can get immediate insight into what the cost of this rework is affecting our organization, how it's affecting us. And then we can look for ways to reduce this or eliminate as much of this rework as possible by streamlining, standardizing, and then, of course, automating activities. And then we can also do different things with this data. We can break down the number of reworks per activity, and we can see the system is guiding us as to where we should be focusing our attention, and then the number of rework cases per vendor. Why is there so much rework across these three vendors over here? And what can we do to then start eliminating all of that and then start driving our efficiencies even further? What we can then do is drill down into that, to the other areas that I've mentioned, but I think let's start taking a look at some of the other areas where we can then go and get process information from. So as I mentioned earlier on, we mentioned that we have multiple sources that make up our discovery pillar. We've looked at the one being process mining, where we're connecting to your backend applications. Let's now look at that second source, where we extract process knowledge from a user interacting with an application. Right, so once we've identified what we want our target process to look like, you would need to be able to test the process in order to ensure that it's running optimally and servicing your business as intended. And then secondly, as part of your optimization journey, you may have identified specific activities that would be good candidates for RPA that you might want to automate in production. So to accelerate your automation journey, we deploy a tool called Business Capture to your users' machines. And Capture will discover how a user is performing one or more transactions through various applications, and then convert that into an asset, which gets stored in our automation library. That same asset can be used for testing as well as for RPA. So just take a second to think about that, to what that does for your ROI and the value that you can get out from such a solution. So you won't need multiple vendors, you don't need multiple automation libraries. Everything is centralized within one central repository, and then you can leverage that same library for both. What we can also additionally do, just by the way, is from the same capture, we can also document your business processes for added value there as well. So let's go and step out of the slide and then start taking a look at business capture being the other source of how we can extract process information. This is business capture. It's a lightweight client that you would deploy to a user's machine. Very easy to get up and running, very easy to use. And we're going to have Capture discover a process that I'm going to walk through in SAP GUI, but this could be any other SAP application. It could be Fiori, it could be SuccessFactors, Ariba, Concur. It could be any other packaged application. It could be Oracle, Salesforce, other web technologies. The methodology would be the same. So let's go and create an invoice. And all a user would have to do is start the capture process and step through their business process like they normally would as part of their day-to-day activities. So no additional task the user would have to do, no extra activities, just go through their business process like they normally would every single day. So I'm just going to go and capture all of the relevant fields. Let's give this a date. Let's give this a reference. Let's just say webinar as an example. Let's give it an amount of 1,000. So all I'm doing is just capturing the process just like we normally would. So this is a mandatory field, GL account. So I'm just going to populate this. And finally, let's give this another amount here. Assuming the user is done, they would now be able to save their transaction and then just proceed with either the normal day-to-day activities, or if they had more that they wanted to capture as part of an end-to-end process, they'd be able to continue using capture to do so. But let's assume the user is done. They'd now be able to stop the capture. And let's take a look at what we've done. So as I was executing the application, it's like Business Capture was looking over my shoulder. It's been discovering the sequence of activities that I went through. As you can see here, it's also discovered the data that I used, and it's taken a snapshot of each and every step. And you've got this narrative in a very easy to understand format that anybody who has at least a high level understanding of the process can look at this, understand this, and understand the sequence of steps that we went through. And then we've got capability within here just to make some changes very easily, like adding additional snapshots, adding in some comments to gather and capture additional information. But assuming a user is done, they'd now be able to save this into a centralized repository. And let's just give this a meaningful name. So let's just give this the transaction name and say it's create invoice. And let's save this back into our repository. All right, so we get a message back saying it's been saved. And then what we would normally do is just take it through a process of documenting, and eventually we get it into our automation library. And that automation library, as I mentioned, is Worksoft certified. So it's the core of our automation platform. You would be creating automation assets similar to the one that we've just created and generated from our capture. And if I double click into it, you'd notice the same steps that I pointed out in the commentary. So those same capture steps get ported into certified. So we accelerate the creation of your automation library by allowing a user to just step through a process. So not only are we extracting process information, we're accelerating the creation and population of your automation library. Then let's run this, because what I'm going to do is run this and then get the results back, because the results become the third source of data that we extract process information from. So I'm going to click on run. We're going to give this through to the Worksoft engine. The engine is now going to drive the automation just like we captured it. It's going to save it. We get that successful message back at the bottom of the SAP GUI. But then we get the results returned back to us in this result viewer, where we start getting some summary information on this particular process. The further down we drill, however, the more detailed information we get per step. So what we're doing is we are drawing out all of this information, all of the step information with all of the details, all of the parameters and the data that we use, as well as the images that we've taken of each and every step. And we're consolidating that as part of our process discovery journey. All right, so let's go back to our slide one last time and then summarize what we've seen before I hand it back over to Chris. I mentioned that we've got the ability to consolidate from various sources. So we looked at process mining, we connect to the back end, get that very rich data that we can then start mining and start walking through to understand our processes visually. We're extracting from the user interface by using capture. So we're understanding the tasks that users are taking as they're completing their processes through your applications. And then we're extracting from the process results as we're running our automation, either in production or for testing. That becomes the third source. Now, we're leaving no stone unturned, right? So we're extracting process information from as many places as we can. And each of these is important in their own right. But for additional value, what we're able to do is take all of this information that we're gathering and roll it up into our process intelligence dashboard, where we give you even additional value back in process knowledge, process understanding, and helping you then realize your savings via optimizations and optimization. So with that, I'm now going to hand this back over to Chris, who will now take you through our process intelligence dashboard. So let me just hand it back over to him. And thank you, Chris. You should now be able to take it away.
All right. Thank you, Nick. Let's see. Oh. All right. There we go. And so here is our kind of our dashboard for process intelligence. This is our 30,000-foot view of the process mining data, the certified data, capture data, RPA, all that data coming together. Here's our high-level dashboard. Just want to point out some things on here. Up here at the top, we've got kind of an ROI over time, right? So one of the things that we can do is, as we're seeing these process optimized, we can actually add a cost component to it, and then we're able to actually visually track and filter for the cost savings that we're actually experiencing. I'm going to flip over to the data management portion here real quick and just show you, here's where we're getting the captures, the capture data that's been sent across. Here's where we're getting the process mining data that's been sent across. All that AI and machine learning is going through and kind of assigning it to business processes, aligning it. If for some reason it doesn't, if it's something new, you can always go in here and assign it to a new business process. Right, so we want to be able to give that ability to, or change one if it, if you need to flip a business process over to something different. The other thing I want to point out here is the reference table. Here's kind of where we're getting some of the cost data. So we can actually go through and adjust some of the cost activities because we know everybody's cost for different activities could be a little different. And that's how we're kind of getting to these figures over here on this dashboard to where we're rolling up, being able to calculate how much ROI are we getting in return. Some of the modules on here, we're tracking total processes. So how many total processes have we gone in here? My demo data has 6. And so how many have we pushed to optimize, right? Either we've improved through process mining, or we've pushed to certify for automation, or we've moved to RPA. Then we can break out those savings into what are we saving in automation? What are we saving kind of in process mining and overall optimization? And then if you're making the S/4HANA transition, kind of what savings are we seeing there? So we can actually kind of look and project and overlay the differences in processes between S/4HANA. And then over here on our right, we've got a breakdown by department. So we can actually see how that optimization, how that automation and ROI figures are coming through per department. We've got a finance view as well as an automation view. So finance view deals with all the dollar figures. Automation view is dealing with more kind of the raw figures. And then let's kind of drill into some of these accounting procedures that we're looking at. And so kind of here is a kind of a variant analysis, process analysis. Up here at the top, we can flip between order to cash, or like Nick was showing us, procure to pay. So we can kind of get a look at the steps of the process. Similarly, when you initially drill in here, you will see the most common variant. So nice and straight. We can pop over here to order to cash. And then we've got abilities to filter this data. So if I want to kind of come in and I want to start looking at additional variants, right? I can see here that, okay, kind of our second most common variant has, a sales order piece, sales order price increase to it. So I can start to see the variance along my most common process. I can filter for additional activities, so I can filter by source. So if I want to see just capture data, just automation data, process mining, I can filter by process or departments. You can already see I've filtered for accounting here. And then we can also go and highlight some of this data, right? So if I come in here, I've got a peel off here, a variant in my activity. If I want to see the frequency with which that occurs, I can kind of highlight the frequency for each step. So I see my sales order item creative happens 100% of the time, and then this price increase happens about 27% of the time. I can also highlight things like duration to kind of see how long things are taking. Additionally, I can highlight the source right now in my demo data. I can highlight by department, and kind of you start seeing little highlight circles come up here, as well as other things I can kind of highlight as those processes go through. I can go here and I can switch to the Harmony view, which takes the 3 variants that I've seen and kind of lines them up horizontally, so I can see which ones are taking extra time. If I want to go through and say I've got my most common variant here, I can go through, I can filter for it, and then here's where I would generate that documentation. So I could generate the branded documentation the same way Analyze does today. Process Intelligence can do that also, and then I can also kind of push it for automation. So if I find one that isn't automated yet and I want to queue it up to bring it into Certify, I can click Automate here and send it over. All right, and then I can easily navigate back to the dashboard. And that is a quick tour of the Process Intelligent dashboard and drilling capabilities. All right, so to sum up, so we've taken a tour. We've discussed how it fits into the Worksoft connective automation platform. We've also touched on how significant a one platform approach can be to your process improvement journey. We are accelerating timelines with automated testing, which is allowing greater and more rapid scaling of RPA, the output of which is being analyzed along with other mind processes to in turn target and prioritize more automation in RPA. This leads to greater end-to-end process stability, greater visibility into the processes at every stage, and ultimately more efficient and effective gains. So even if you're only part of the way along this kind of process improvement journey, maybe you're only doing test automation. As you grow and become more efficient and more effective, you're going to be growing along these pillars, these process pillars. That growth will be faster, smoother, and ultimately more cost beneficial with a one platform approach over the challenge of incorporating multiple tools and getting them to successfully interact with each other. Speaking of a journey, we are looking to start the process intelligence journey by launching early in 2021. We are now looking for existing Worksoft customers that wish to participate in the beta. So if you're interested, reach out to us through anybody you know at Worksoft, or simply email beta@worksoft.com. There's a lot of flexibility in the dashboard and process drill down that you saw today. There's a lot of options in what analytics we show and how we drill down into those analytics. This beta is a great chance to have a voice into those analytics and into the ways those analytics are explored. So if you are interested, feel free, reach out to us, beta@worksoft.com. And that is all we have for today.